Ladies and gentlemen, members and guests, good morning, and welcome to another beautiful day in Port Angeles. Sun is shining, snow on the mountains, not raining. It certainly is one. And today, we are going to hear the second of our two-part series on fluoridation. And although both sides are widely, greatly apart on opinion, facts, and rhetoric, one thing that they both agree on, and as you heard last week from Dr. Atkinson, is, and you'll hear today from Dr. Locke, public health policy should not be conducted by survey. Yet, our city council has decided that it will be. So you, the membership, voted to bring in the groups to hear the information so you can be informed on what is happening. With that said, let's move to our program this week, which features the pro side of fluoridation. It will be presented by the former health official of Clallam County and the current health official of Jefferson County. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Tom Locke.
Roll that thing back a little bit, and you won't have to, or the whole thing. This is good.
How'd I do?
This one.
Yeah.
I wanted to tip the table.
Water. So I decided to spare you the PowerPoint treatment on this. I can steer you to as many PowerPoint slides as you would possibly want to look at on this issue. But what I hope to do today is just make some brief remarks, maybe 10-15 minutes worth, and then open it up for discussion. Because what I would really like to know is what sort of questions people have on this issue, and we'll try to answer those as honestly and straightforwardly as I can. The first thing I would say about fluoridation, and I've been involved in this issue as long as I've been a physician, which is 40 years. And the controversy on this goes way back further than that. The thing that always surprises me is that this is even controversial. When you look at community water fluoridation and the science that underlies it, this is one of the most natural things you can imagine doing. Because first and foremost, fluoride is something that's everywhere in our environment. It's the 13th most common element on this planet. You cannot find groundwater on this planet that does not have fluoride in it. It's just a question of how much. The oceans, where we think all life came from, have especially high fluoride content. It's about double what we advocate putting into community water systems. So I think one of the silliest things I heard several weeks ago during our discussion before the city council was that we would somehow washing ocean fish in fresh water somehow was going to contaminate them with fluoride, when in fact these fish spent their entire lifespan in fluoridated water. So it's a very natural thing, and the reason we advocate putting it in water is a result of a kind of natural experiment that went on. There are areas of this country that have sort of optimal amounts of fluoride in the water naturally, and people observed that the people who drank this water had far fewer cavities than people in other areas, and this research was done in Colorado. It's also been observed in this country and around the world that you can have too much fluoride in your water, and you have to reduce it to safe levels. And we in public health believe that you can have too little fluoride, that we scientifically determined that there's an optimal level that gives you the benefits of preventing dental decay without any significant health side effects. So that is one way to look at the science that underlies this. Despite this, this has been a controversy since its very beginning. And community fluoridation has been practiced in this country now for 70 years. And at first, when it first came out, it was regarded as a government conspiracy. The John Birch Society was all over it. It was lampooned in the movie Dr. Strangelove. I don't know if people remember that, but that's why General Jack Ripper launched the nuclear fleet, because of his concerns about water fluoridation. And it's just been this endless controversy that won't go away. The facts of this are pretty straightforward. Fact number one is that the use of community water fluoridation has been steadily spreading in this country. We're now up to almost 75% of the U.S. population drinks fluoridated water. And in a sense, this is a huge experiment, if you want to look at it that way. If really any of the adverse health effects you hear about were happening, we would actually know about it, given the fact that so many people drink this optimally fluoridated water. When you look worldwide, it's over 400 million people, and there are populations that have been drinking fluoridated water for thousands of years, because it naturally occurs in areas all over the planet. It's been the topic of what I could only describe as exhaustive public health research. Over 30,000 published studies. It's probably the most researched topic in public health history. And based on this research, all credible scientific organizations in this country and many in the world support this. And these are not celebrity endorsements. These are not things that people just sign on to. These are the leading science organizations whose job it is to critically evaluate information and make recommendations. So in that realm, there's no controversy whatsoever. That this is a safe and effective thing to do, and the evidence on that has been in for decades and decades. And if that's not enough, whole countries revisit this issue periodically and look at all the published research and make a national decision. The most recent one to do this is New Zealand, which was in 2014. And again, all these national reviews, they come down on the same side. That the safety claims are debunked, the lack of effectiveness claims are debunked. And yet, the controversy on this remains, and it will probably always be there. Last week, you heard from the West Coast representative of the national organization that's leading this controversy, the Fluoride Action Network. They're the one with the billboard outside of town. And among other things, they've chosen Port Angeles as the battleground for this issue. So we've been fighting this now 12, 13 years, and we may never be able to stop. And you have to ask yourself, why bother? Why go to all this effort for a fraction of a part per million of fluoride in drinking water? And I think that the way I would answer that is it fundamentally has to do with the concept of public health. Is that in health, there's a lot of things that are personal responsibility. Choices we make to take care of ourselves or not take care of ourselves. So, I very much accept that. But there's another dimension to health too. And there are things that we have to do as a community to promote health. That safe food and safe drinking water and vaccinations and controlling epidemic diseases like mumps and tuberculosis. You just can't do that one person at a time. And that's where water treatment in general and fluoridation in particular, treatment of public water systems, not private, but public water systems, are managed for maximum public benefit. And you know, a lot of people don't know this, but we use over 50 different water additives are licensed in this country and used in various combinations in public water systems. And if we didn't do this, we wouldn't have public water systems. You know, just this notion of, you know, distributing water throughout a system in pipes that are leaking in certain places and are letting groundwater in. You have to do a lot of stuff to that water to make it safe to drink. You have to disinfect it. You have to control the pH and what's called the corrosivity, the degree to which it wants to dissolve the pipes that it's in, and on and on. And that's where fluoride legally fits into this structure. It's one of 50 plus regulated, approved water additives that are used to optimize public water systems. So really, I think the best way to look, and the way I look at a community water system, is this is part of a public health strategy for oral health protection. And it's one that's incredibly cost effective. It's one of the most cost effective things we know of in the public health realm. You know, the conventional figure that's used is about $38 are saved for every dollar you invest in it. I've seen analyses where that number is as high as $60 or $80. And you know, we don't see that in anything else. You know, we're happy if we get 5-to-1 or 10-to-1 ratios in things like vaccination or communicable disease control. So it has the cost-effective benefit, and dental care is a very costly problem, and it's one it's much more expensive to fix than it is to prevent. So that's a significant issue here. And as it turns out, water fluoridation is kind of the ideal way to get the benefits of this. There are alternatives. You know, you can take pills and drops, supplements in your diet, but it doesn't work the same way. When you do that, you're taking a surge of the mineral, whereas the ideal way to do it is to have it present in small amounts continuously, so it circulates in our saliva. That's how teeth work. You know, we're constantly breaking down and building up our teeth. And when you do that in the presence of fluoride, your tooth enamel becomes more resistant to decay. The fluoride gets incorporated into the tooth enamel, and that's how it gets the benefit. And we've known about that for a long time. The other reason that a lot of us feel so passionate about this, why we proposed it to the City Council in the first place in 2002, 2003, is that we have a real problem in this community and on the North Olympic Peninsula with rates of dental decay, especially in children, but in all ages. And we also have a real problem with access to dental care. And the combination of these two means that we have a lot of people with untreated dental decay in this community. And that crisis moved us to action. You know, we knew that there was this cheap, effective strategy that we were not using, that most of the population in this country uses, but we were not using it. And that's why we advocated for it. And this coalition has remained active since that time, and we've tried to do a lot of different things. It's not just about community water fluoridation. You know, we were the group that started up the low-income dental clinic at Armory Square, which has now become taken over by a community health center. We're behind the volunteer clinic that VIMO runs, and what's called the ABCD program, which has to do with access to for dental care for young children, because it takes that kind of comprehensive solution to improve oral health. If you look, the opposition to this is not involved in any of those activities. They are truly the antis. They are against things. They have not stepped forward to provide any sort of health promoting activities. They're carrying on this 70-year-old national controversy about fluoridation. And it's a controversy, I would add, it lost in the court of science a long time ago. Science is virtually unanimous in its support of this. It also lost in the legal courts a long time ago. All these issues you hear about, forced medication, and is it a drug, and is it a violation of individual liberty? All of those topics were extensively litigated decades ago, and the courts came down firmly on the fact that no, it's not a drug. It's not a violation of individual liberty. It's intrinsic to how public water systems are managed. And this battle's has gone on in Washington state courts too, and to the point that the courts in this state have ruled this is not even a topic that's subject to citizens' initiative, because it's not a legislative issue, it's an administrative issue that's really no different than the iron content or the pH or any other variable in community water community water treatment. So there's really only one court left to argue this issue, and that's the court of public opinion. And that's what you see playing out in this community now. And in that battle, the opposition to this have a powerful weapon, and that weapon is fear. It's easy to scare people about issues, especially if you're not bound by the constraints of science. If you just get to throw any issue out there that you want, any bit of preliminary science research, even though it's been later debunked. And that's what the debate is about. If you go on their website, you see a lot of unvalidated scientific information that people read and people get scared. They're being told that there's poison in their water and it causes terrible health effects and it doesn't work, and there's some kind of shadowy conspiracy out there that involves nowadays I think it's fertilizer industry is somehow behind this all, and the Centers for Disease Control and the public health system, we're all on the take somehow from big fertilizer. And it just that's the sort of the discourse we see, and unfortunately we're seeing this spill over into other areas too. This science versus pseudoscience is now at play in debates about vaccination and climate change and other things. So we're really in the era of science versus pseudoscience. The reason I care about this is that I spent my career in public health. I'm also a practicing physician, and have always been, and that's the bulk of what I'm doing these days. And so I get to look in a lot of mouths, children and adults, and what I see, it's just absolutely appalling. People who don't have this problem would be staggered if they saw the amount of pain and suffering and disability and lost self-esteem, the cost involved, and the really perverse thing is that it's almost all preventable. Most other diseases we don't really know how to prevent. We can slow them down and lower the rates, but dental decay is something that at least in theory is 100% preventable, and you should be able to go through your entire life without ever having a cavity or losing a tooth, unless someone knocks it out. But we're not anywhere near achieving that goal. But we're trying, and that's what this is about. This community water fluoridation is an investment in prevention. So that's why I care about it. But I want to wrap up just by addressing the question, why should the business community, why should the Port Angeles Business Association care about this issue? Based on your personal health and the health of your families, health of your employees, because oral health matters. It's not just a cosmetic thing. We're learning more and more it has to do with your overall health. Heart disease, and diabetes, and premature labor, and a growing list of things have been linked to poor oral health. It has an economic impact on the community. Disease is costly, and oral health disease is especially costly. And as I think most people here know, there really is no free care. Everything gets paid for by someone. And if the people that need the service can't pay for it, it gets shifted somewhere else. This is one of the things that makes our system in the United States, our healthcare system, so expensive, is we're shifting around the cost constantly in a very inefficient way. And for the most part, we're failing to invest in prevention. So we're treating things at late, expensive stages than earlier on. I think the business community should care about community image. If you have friends who live in the city or family who live in the city, and you tell them, oh, we've been fighting over fluoridation for 12 years in Port Angeles, they'll think you're crazy. They'll think that this issue was settled a long, long time ago and can't imagine why it's such a big deal. It's not a big deal in the cities that they live in. I think you should also be concerned about community image, and this is especially troubling to me about this, is that we're in a constant process of trying to attract health professionals to this area. A number of us are getting pretty long in the tooth. I'll submit myself as Exhibit A in this argument, and we have a whole generation of healthcare providers in this country, or in this community, who are nearing retirement age, and we need to recruit their successors, and a system that community that's endlessly arguing about settled science is not an attractive community for young health professionals. I think the same potentially applies to businesses and employers of the future. They want a healthy workforce. They want the same kind of health amenities you get in the urban areas, and we try to deliver that through the range of services we offer. But we need to make similar investments in prevention that are made in the urban areas. And finally, this whole issue, the deeper you get into it, the more you hear conflicting claims on both sides, and it really comes down to who do you believe? Do you believe in science? Do you believe in the local physicians who stand united in support of this, the local dentists who stand united, or do you believe in the argument of the opposition, which is basically a non-scientific, or what we call pseudo-scientific argument? It's who do you believe, who do you trust? That's what I urge people to use as their criteria. Unless you want to go and get a research degree and try to sort through these 30,000 studies and make sense of them, you delegate that to someone else. So as Andrew said, there's going to be a survey on this. It's not really a public vote. The Supreme Court in this state has said this is not even subject to public vote. But it's it is a kind of an opinion poll, and we're hopeful that it will come out positive. A lot of these, when this has been done in other areas, it has a lot to do with turnout. Or response rate in this case. The more people that send in their opinion, the more closely it approximates approximates the true sentiment of the population, and the more likely it is to support it. Because nationally, this is a winning issue. You know, most people in this country in opinion polls support the idea of community water fluoridation. So we hope the same is true in this community. So I'll leave it at that in terms of remarks, and just open it up to any questions.
I like my PEB water, but I have some neighbors who drink only bottled water or rid of filter, pure filters. I think they're getting rid or filtering out the fluoride. Are they throwing those out?
They are. You can remove fluoride and everything else from water if you want to, either through reverse osmosis or distillation, is what it takes to get the minerals. And bottled water, you're never actually sure what's in bottled water because it's almost completely unregulated. You know, there are bottled waters that are urban tap water that are just put in plastic bottles, and there are some that are from various spring sources, natural sources. And natural spring mineral water is very likely to have fluoride in it. In fact, it may have optimal amounts of fluoride because it's naturally present in groundwater. So about the only unfluoridated water you can get is reverse water that's had all the minerals removed by reverse osmosis. And then usually they put some minerals back in because distilled water doesn't taste good. It tastes strange. We're not used to that. So, and certainly what we get out of our taps is not distilled water. If they pump distilled water into our public water systems, it would dissolve your pipes. And so it just doesn't work to do it that way. Sir?
The FDA, do they have any role in the control of additives to water?
No. This was settled in the courts a long time ago when these jurisdictions were divided up. So the water additives are under the EPA, and there's strict standards for all of the 50 plus additives in terms of purity and testing and what concentrations can exist. So the FDA deals with food and medications basically. So yeah, it's not that the FDA doesn't want to regulate this. It's not in their jurisdiction. They've taken a pass on it. Congress has specifically assigned this to a different regulatory agency.
This may surprise some people here, but I'm somewhat cynical. And I try to follow the money. And I see lots of brochures being printed. I see signs all over the place. Somebody's paying a lot of money for both sides of this. Who's benefiting? Why are you paying all this money for this stuff? Why are they paying it? Who's benefiting? Somebody's getting money for this.
Well, good question. I'll tell you why we're I'm volunteering my time on this, but we're fortunate in this state. Washington State has one of the 3 foundations in the country that's devoted specifically to oral health promotion. It's called the Washington Dental Service Foundation. They're the ones that paid for Port Angeles's fluoridation system, like 12 years ago. And they're very active in defending that system. That part of their mission is try to promote community water fluoridation throughout the state. So any community that wants to fluoridate their water or wants to defend the decision that if their system is currently fluoridated, the Dental Foundation will step forward and offer their assistance. So that's where the funding and technical support, and specifically these brochures you see, are from the Washington Dental Service Foundation. And we
Where do they
appreciate
get their money?
They get their money from the Delta Dental of Washington. So the largest dental insurance company in this state is a not-for-profit. So any profit they make, and they're very profitable. They make $5 to $8 million a year in excess revenue, and it all goes into the foundation. Fluoridation is only a small part of what the foundation does. It also, builds low-income dental clinics and promotes oral health in a number of different ways. Now the flip side of this, I'm not sure where the funding comes from for the antis and especially the Fluoride Action Network, but they're the big national group that mounts these campaigns, especially in rural areas. So that's the money trail as best I know it.
Somehow, I always think it comes from me. If you go back far enough, it comes from private citizens, doesn't it?
If you purchase or are the beneficiary of dental insurance, then yes, some of that money is going to promote water fluoridation. Basically because it's an evidence-based strategy. The science is in favor of it. It's very cost-effective, and we know it works. We've got ample evidence of that fact.
Don Perry is behind you.
We've had fluoridation for 12 years. Hasn't been ongoing research as to see, has it changed as far as tooth decay? Has there anything been done with that to show that it's working or not working over that 12-year period of time? Has there been any oversight on that?
There, not really. We certainly have reports from dentists that they're seeing a difference, and I regard that as highly credible because it's pretty obvious to a dentist. Unfluoridated teeth are kind of crumbly and have decay on multiple surfaces, and not only do you see much less decay when people, especially children, have been exposed to optimal amounts of fluoride, but the decay is more limited, the teeth are easier to repair. So dentists notice it the most. We've never set forth to do any kind of comprehensive impact study because we've always regarded it as being a waste of money. To do it right is really expensive. It's millions of dollars to do what's called a fluoride efficacy study because you have to track all the dose exposures to fluoride, how much they're getting through food and supplement, and then you have to have a control population that you look at. And I've always regarded this as a waste of money. We don't try to prove that seat belts work in Port Angeles or bike helmets or penicillin or any of those things. We just accept scientifically those are verified effective solutions. There's no reason they shouldn't work in Port Angeles. We do have some indirect evidence that things are getting better. We do the SMILE survey every 5 years as a statewide survey, and SMILE survey data from this area has been improving. But we don't claim that's all fluoride. As I mentioned, we're doing a bunch of different things to try to improve oral health. And across the board nowadays, fluoridation gives you about a 25% improvement in oral health status in a population. What we really want is 100%. And so we have to do a bunch of other things too. But the strict answer to your question is no. No one is proposing or set up the system to do an efficacy study because it's been done elsewhere over and over and over again.
Andrew.
I have a follow-up comment with Dick's, and then I'll go to a question. And I, like Mr. Pilling, agree that you follow the money, who has an axe to grind, who benefits, and it seems to me to be a little counterintuitive, whereas, as you mentioned, the dental health industry is really behind fluoridation. Why? I'm going today to get a cavity filled. It's going to be hundreds of dollars. Why would an industry pay to cut their own profits? So just, in one of the ways I look at it, to me, that holds some weight. With that said, my research has showed, or the little bit that I've got into it, there is different kinds of fluorides. It can be a gas or a salt. It comes from different sources. Could you spend a little bit of time, because I hear the opposition making claims that because fluoride comes from this source or this country of origin, it's bad. So is that true that there is different types of fluorides and different applications throughout the dental and industrial world that fluoride is used?
Well, there's certainly different sources of, of fluoride in concentrated form is always complexed with some other compound. Once you dissolve it in water, every fluoride ion is exactly identical to every other fluoride ion on the planet. And so in drinking water, what we're talking about, that fluoride is exactly the same no matter where it came from. Commercially, where most fluoride comes from is it's actually mined from what are ancient coral reef in marine formations that contain a lot of calcium and phosphate and fluoride, because fluoride has been something that's present in seawater since time immemorial. So they mine it and they make three products out of it. They make gypsum for drywall, phosphoric acid, which is used in soda pop and a number of other applications, and fertilizer. It's an ingredient in fertilizer, and fluoride. When you in this industrial process, it gives off fluoride gas, which they capture and concentrate in water, and that's the preferred method that most urban community water fluoridation systems use because it's so concentrated. The fluorosilicic acid is 23% fluoride, so it's and as you imagine, something that concentrated. It's a very powerful acid, but it dissolves very completely. The most ubiquitous natural form of fluoride, calcium fluoride, which the opposition, they call it, that's the good kind of fluoride. It's virtually insoluble. So calcium fluoride doesn't dissolve in water. And that's so that is not a good source. But interestingly, the other forms of fluoride that are used in commercial or community water systems, sodium fluoride and I'm forgetting the third type. They're actually made from the same industrial process because that fluoride is very cheap to manufacture. That's why we can put it in community water systems where most of that water is actually going to flush toilets and water lawns and who knows what. But it's so cheap as a water additive that it still costs about $1 per person per year to put fluoride into drinking water systems.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Locke, very much for coming. Next week.
Water fluoridation. And it's just been this endless controversy that won't go away. The facts of this are pretty straightforward. Fact number one is that the use of community water fluoridation has been steadily spreading in this country. We're now up to almost 75% of the U.S. population drinks fluoridated water. And in a sense, this is a huge experiment if you want to look at it that way. If really any of the adverse health effects you hear about were happening, we would actually know about it, given the fact that so many people drink this optimally fluoridated water. When you look worldwide, it's over 400 million people, and there are populations that have been drinking fluoridated water for thousands of years because it naturally occurs in areas all over the planet. It's been the topic of what I could only describe as exhaustive public health research. Over 30,000 published studies. It's probably the most researched topic in public health history. And based on this research, and people observed that the people who drank this water had far fewer cavities than people in other areas. And this research was done in Colorado. It's also been observed in this country and around the world that you can have too much fluoride in your water, and you have to reduce it to safe levels. And we in public health believe that you can have too little fluoride, that we scientifically determine that there's an optimal level that gives you the benefits of preventing dental decay without any significant health side effects. So that is one way to look at the science that underlies this. Despite this, this has been a controversy since its very beginning, and community fluoridation has been practiced in this country now for 70 years. And at first, when it first came out, it was regarded as a government conspiracy. The John Birch Society was all over it. It was lampooned in the movie Dr. Strangelove. I don't know if people remember that, but that's why General Jack Ripper launched the nuclear fleet, because of his concerns about water.
Roll that thing back a little bit, and then you won't have to, or the whole thing. This is good.
How'd I do?
This one.
Yeah.
I wanted to tip the table.
Water. So I decided to spare you the PowerPoint treatment on this. I can steer you to as many PowerPoint slides as you would possibly want to look at on this issue. But what I hope to do today is just make some brief remarks, maybe 10-15 minutes worth, and then open it up for discussion. Because what I would really like to know is what sort of questions people have on this issue, and I we'll try to answer those as honestly and straightforwardly as I can. The first thing I would say about fluoridation, and I've been involved in this issue as long as I've been a physician, which is 40 years, and the controversy on this goes way back further than that. The thing that always surprises me is that this is even controversial. When you look at community water.
Ladies and gentlemen, members and guests, good morning, and welcome to another beautiful day in Port Angeles. Sun is shining, snow on the mountains, not raining. It certainly is one. And today, we are going to hear the second of our two-part series on fluoridation. And although both sides are widely, greatly apart on opinion, facts, and rhetoric, one thing that they both agree on, and as you heard last week from Dr. Atkinson, is, and you'll hear today from Dr. Locke, public health policy should not be conducted by survey. Yet, our city council has decided that it will be. So you, the membership, voted to bring in the groups to hear the information so you can be informed on what is happening. With that said, let's move to our program this week, which features the pro side of fluoridation. It will be presented by the former health official of Clallam County and the current health official of Jefferson County. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Tom Locke.
Fluoridation and the science that underlies it. This is one of the most natural things you can imagine doing, because first and foremost, Fluoride is something that's everywhere in our environment. It's the 13th most common element on this planet. You cannot find groundwater on this planet that does not have fluoride in it. It's just a question of how much. The oceans, where we think all life came from, have especially high fluoride content. It's about double what we advocate putting into community water systems. So I think one of the silliest things I heard several weeks ago during our discussion before the city council was that we would somehow washing ocean fish in fresh water somehow was going to contaminate them with fluoride, when in fact these fish spent their entire lifespan in fluoridated water. So it's a very natural thing, and the reason we advocate putting it in water is a result of a kind of natural experiment that went on. There are areas of this country that have sort of optimal amounts of fluoride in the water naturally,